Hello and welcome to News Across Nigeria. I'm Olumide Macaulay. On the program today, the Delta State Advocacy Committee against oil facility vandalism asks federal government to dialogue with host communities for intelligence on vandals. The Imo State government clamps down on kidnappers' dens, insists police must flush out criminals from the state. And stakeholders in the Adamawa state capital assess use of loans advanced to beneficiaries in the northeast. We begin with a story that's of particular concern to Nigeria's oil and gas industry, which then affects the entire country. The militant group that calls itself the Niger Delta Avengers claimed to have attacked a Chevron oil facility in the Niger Delta region. The group in a statement says up the Escravas tank farm, the main electricity feed pipeline there. Reuters news agency, quoting an unnamed Chevron spokeswoman in the United States, says that it was against company policy to comment on the safety and security of personnel and operations. However, the spokesman for the Ijaw Youth Council says that the attack indeed took place. This alleged attack is coming after a 2-week ultimatum given owners of oil blocks in the region by the group to evacuate their staff and shut down operations, which ended today. Meanwhile, attacks by the new militant group and other acts of sabotage are said to be responsible for the huge drop in Nigeria's crude oil production capacity, which now stands at 1.67 million barrels per day. One of the worst affected states is Delta State, which has set up an advocacy committee against oil facility vandalism headed by the deputy governor. After touring communities around oil facilities, the committee resolved that the federal government should dialogue with the communities so they can help provide intelligence on the perpetrators.
Latest figures from the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries shows that Nigeria has lost its Africa's top oil-producing status to Angola, which saw its oil output rise to 1.78 million barrels per day in March. According to OPEC's oil market report, Nigeria's crude oil production fell by 67,000 barrels per day by the end of the first quarter. In its monthly oil market report, the cartel put crude oil production from Nigeria at 1.67 million barrels per day in March, down from 1.74 million barrels per day in February. Nigeria's Minister of State for Petroleum attributes the drop to pipeline vandalism. The damage has cost the nation about $35.2 million so far. Most of these attacks are carried out on the pipelines by militants in states like Delta, and the government says it's time to put a stop to such attacks, taking its campaign to the creeks to educate communities around oil facilities. The youth are also not in support of the attacks and feel the government is taking the right step.
Vandalizing these pipes is not a solution to the problems we face in the region. So we want to use this opportunity as well to thank the committee and appeal to our brothers and sisters, if anybody is involved, should please desist from so doing, as it's not going to do us well.
We will not encourage bombing. I think people masquerading themselves, becoming invisible to destroy our pipelines is not the way forward. I think the people should come out and table their grievances.
After the tour, the state government addresses a press conference on its findings.
There is an apparent consensus that the government, oil companies have continued to neglect the communities, resulting in underdevelopment or development not commensurate with the production output of these communities.
The deputy governor also highlights a possible solution.
The federal government needs to properly inform of all grievances of who may be involved, so the community can create platforms of dialogue and engagement and avert crises that may not necessarily discriminate the innocent and the non-guilty within the society.
Hopefully, the quest for a peaceful resolution to this crisis will appeal to the restive youth to stop the bombings and channel their grievances through a more acceptable medium.
Meanwhile, the United States says it's ready to help Nigeria establish peace and end the ongoing violence in the South-South region by the Niger Delta Avengers and other militant groups. The U.S. Consul General to Nigeria, John Bray, made the promise when he visited a traditional ruler in Delta State. He was at the palace to seek solutions to the recent bombings of oil and gas installations in the Niger Delta. The traditional ruler is asking the federal government to dialogue with the militants instead of engaging them militarily to save the economy from further collapse. Away from the oil and gas related stories, but staying with security and also in the South-South, the Cross River State Police Command has sued for peaceful coexistence between the communities in the state and the herdsmen following the wanton destruction of lives and property in some parts of the country by herdsmen. The command was speaking through the Commissioner of Police at a one-day stakeholders forum with farmers and herdsmen in Calabar, the Cross River State capital.
In recent months, some parts of the country have witnessed an unfamiliar menace of herdsmen and farmers clash. This alarming and unprecedented rise of this threat has generated hostilities between the hinterland communities and herdsmen, which informed this gathering. The Cross River Commissioner of Police, Henry Fadairo, recommends that the committee be set up to look into the affairs of farmers and the herdsmen, especially in the rural communities.
The following incidents are invariably endangering the peace coexistence once shared in the mentioned areas and environs. Without a doubt, these complaints need our collective attention to be nipped in the bud. Hence, it is not too late for us to stand together and act.
Representatives from all local government areas in the state were represented at the forum, which promises to address lingering issues between communities and the herdsmen.
To complain that the animals were in my own farm. If they can attack my own farm, the land, and can imagine what happened to the other animals. Because of this incessant destruction of our crops and so on, the entire Mako now, I'm revealing the secret to you, have resolved equally that we cannot harbor the herdsmen because we suffer full hardship from their hands.
The federal government, state government, and local government has to provide a grazing land for the herdsmen to be grazing there, so that they should not come out from where it's provided for them.
Participants at the forum are asking government at all levels to avail the herdsmen a grazing space for their cattle, just as farmers are allocated where to farm. They believe this will ultimately solve the clash between the farmers and the herdsmen in the state.
You're watching news across Nigeria. Coming up, concerning security, the Imo State government demolishes a kidnapper's den. Don't go away.